Those YouTube viewers who've seen my lengthy video on riding recumbent tadpole tricycles, specifically my 2012 model by Catrike, their road model, will know that I made some comments in there about one of the difficulties, actually when I consider one of the few downsides to a recumbent that is so recumbent like that, is that if you're riding in the direction of the sun and it's low in the sky, that you can have an inability to move your head in such a way as to keep the sun out of your eyes. And I've been looking for a few years to find a suitable visor that I can add to a regular helmet that will come down far enough to be useful in those situations. I didn't want to make something rigid because there's always the possibility if you get in a crash or something, you don't want something rigid above your eyes. I always consider that you want everything around your eyes to be flexible and enough in such a way that, you know, if that part of the helmet impacts, it's not going to shatter and drive sharp pieces into your eyes. I finally found this one product that the Hostel shop in Stevens Point, Wisconsin sells, and it's called the Bent Ray Visor. Now there's another YouTube on their website which suggests that this is their own product, like they developed it, but it didn't exactly say that on the packaging, so I'm not really sure whose product this really is, if it's unique to the Hostel shop or if it's from somebody else. But anyway, I didn't intend to make a video of this, so I decided to patch together some slides I took of the process in the hopes that it'll be useful to other people. Here's what the visor looks like right out of the package. It's fairly stiff but still flexible, and it's made out of a laminate or a composite laminate of fiberglass and carbon fiber fabric. The visor also comes with several sizes and lengths of black zip ties, which is the method that the manufacturer presumes you're going to use to attach this to your helmet. Before mounting the new visor, it was necessary to remove the built-in visor that came with the helmet. This was actually just held in by about 4 little plastic snaps that were molded into the styrofoam that the helmet is made out of, and it pulled off pretty easily. It's not really replaceable. It's not intended to be taken off and then snapped back on. Pulling it off pretty much meant that it was going to stay off. It was necessary to drill a few holes in the helmet for the zip ties, since the position of the holes on the visor did not always line up with the slots on the helmet. In some cases, the zip tie would go through a hole that I drilled, loop around through the helmet, and then pass out through an air vent on the helmet, so I wouldn't have to drill 2 holes for each zip tie. But you can see both internal and external views here of the drilled holes. Because I have a large head, my friends would say a fat head, I have to have almost all the padding removed in my helmet, or it won't even fit. So I have the absolute thinnest padding, and that meant that the zip ties here could be coming very close to my skin and possibly even press into the skin in a couple of spots. So I actually took a razor blade and carved little channels in the foam for the zip ties to lay into so they wouldn't be quite as close to my head. Here's the zip tie looped through the front center of the visor through a hole I drilled, and then looped back through the center air ventilation slot. And you'll see that the I guess you'd call it the buckle part of the zip tie is inside the helmet, but positioned so that when it's tightened, it'll position that larger part inside an air vent, so it doesn't stick out any more than necessary. And here are a few photos showing where I drilled a hole for the side of the visor next to a side air vent, and then did the same thing, cutting a notch in the styrofoam on the inside of the helmet, for the zip tie to lay into, and then looping the zip tie through in such a way that its buckle will position into the air vent, and then tightening it up. And here are a couple more photos showing a hole drilled next to an air vent on the opposite side of the helmet, and the zip tie looping through the hole and through the adjacent air vent. Here's the visor attached as it finally worked out to the helmet, with a front view and a side view, and sort of an under view from the side, and then an under view from the vantage point of the person wearing the helmet. You can see how far it comes down. I've made a couple of rides now in the morning when the sun was pretty low, and this visor definitely helped. It was vastly better than what I had before, and I didn't have to ride with one hand on the tiller and one hand held up to my face to shield my eyes. And by tipping my chin down, I could adjust how high or how low the visor was relative to the horizon. And in most cases, unless I was riding up a hill into the sun, I was able to blot it out with this visor. I think that the visor might be a little better if it was perhaps another 3/4 of an inch, 7/8 of an inch longer in the dimension that would hang down in front of your eyes, because you can always mount the visor up a little higher if you think it's too low, but I was unable to lower the visor any more than it is shown here, because the center mounting holes would be going through the structure along the edge of the helmet, at least on my particular helmet. I didn't want to put any holes there, and I didn't want to have to loop a zip tie around the bottom edge of the helmet, so I had it about as low as it could go on my particular helmet, and I imagine other people would have a similar limitation. But even with that, it's pretty good, and I may investigate ways to add a little bit extra to the bottom, maybe some piece of stiff fabric or something that can be glued along the edge. It might look a little kludgy, but I think this is a good product. I don't have any issues with safety wearing it. I don't think it would splinter and put shards into my eyes if I happen to have a frontal impact for some reason. So a good product. Maybe it could be improved a little bit, but better than anything else I've seen.